Hello again. Welcome to the third of the series of Future Skills Center at Cannexus sessions. If you weren't part of the first two, no worries. There are no prerequisites for this session. We welcome you here. We are going to be talking about a brand new career development professional center that we are delighted to be launching. My name's Sareena Hopkins. I'm with the Canadian Career Development Foundation, and our team at CCDF, who is here behind those bright lights, and Tanis, who you heard from if you were here for the second session, and her team, who I believe is here as well, at Mix Mode, and of course with the huge support from the Future Skills Center and from Blueprint. I'm delighted to be joined today by two dear friends and members of the Advisory Council for the Center. So, Trina, I'll let you introduce yourself.
All right, this is on. I love this. Give me a microphone. So good morning, Ani Buju Kwekwe. My name's Trina Maher. I'm president of Bridging Concepts, and it's a pleasure to be here and to talk to you about the the Career Development Practitioner Center. And so with that, I guess I wear many hats as a career practitioner, as an educator, change maker, making places and workspaces, and as a member of the council, it's a real pleasure to be here and to talk about the journey that we've all been on, and you've all been a part of that. And a shout out to the HR people in the room and the Indigenous HR people, because I'm also chair of the Canadian Aboriginal HR Management Association. And on behalf of that association, we look forward to collaborating with the Centre and having some opportunities to align some work. So with that, over to my other panel colleague.
Bonjour, good morning. My name is Candy Ho, and I'm currently the chair of the CERIC board. We're going to talk about the idea of playing in multiple sandboxes. So I play a couple of roles, and I like to think that I live and breathe career development, as do many of you. I'm currently an assistant professor in integrative career and capstone learning at the University of the Fraser Valley. And this year I've been seconded by Kwantlen Polytechnic University as their university lead of sustainable development goals. So another sandbox that I get to play with. And I believe and I truly am passionate about giving back to the next generation of CDP. So I currently teach, when I have the time, in the CDP program at Douglas College.
Awesome. Thank you. So we have heard about some pretty dizzying changes when it comes to the nature of work and labor market dynamics. And we've heard about some new and emerging kind of big ideas about career and employment services and how they are evolving and changing, both to secure the future of all Canadians, but I would venture to say also to secure our future as a sector and our relevance and the role that we have to play. And so this session really is about us. It is about our sector and bringing supports and resources to nurture, to promote, and to strengthen us as a sector so that we are ready to meet the needs and anticipate the needs and to be there to fill those gaps. You know, it's pretty clear, and it's being recognized right around the world in a way that has not happened ever before in my career. I mean, I've been at this for 30 years this year, and it was hard to get people to say the words career development when I started in this field. I would go to, a party, and people would ask me what I do, and I would get this blank, deer caught in the headlights stare when I would say I'm a career development professional. And that really is changing. We've got the OECD, the ILO, the World Bank, UNESCO, all saying with one voice that government should be investing more in career development services. They are using those words, and they are using them with power to say, we need more of this. There needs to be stronger investment. And so, is this working? Yes. And so if career services are more needed than ever before, then supporting those who are delivering the services becomes more important than ever before. Yes.
Thank you.
And, career services are human services. And if we don't attend to the humans, the career development professionals that are delivering those services, we are in deep trouble. And so the Career Development Professional Center really is devoted 100% to supporting the humans, supporting the humans delivering career services. And so in this session, we want to share what is the Career Development Professional Center, where did it come from, what was the thinking behind it, and how can we come together today to strengthen how we're thinking about it, a little bit about what's next, so that you can, if you haven't already gotten involved, which I hope you have, but if you haven't already gotten involved, that you can get involved. And so, you know, a few years ago on this stage, I was talking about how quality career services are underpinned by both art and science. You know, that it's complex, sophisticated, and critically important work. And I talked about how in the emerging labor market, career development actually is going to be a superpower. And that really resonated, I think, with lots of us. But if that's true, if in this labor market, career development is a superpower, the capacity to navigate the changing waters of this labor market, which I really believe it is a superpower, then that makes those delivering the services the superheroes. And so we know that the work that we do, when it's done with quality, really is underpinned by complex, sophisticated skills. We have a brand new competency framework that really puts that right down on paper, the incredible skills that underpin. So oh my God, you're already at it. So we're gonna create a tableau of some of the superpowers that underpin your work. So in whatever capacity you're working in career development, whether you are a frontline service provider, whether you are a manager, a researcher, whether you're a policymaker, whether you are employing career development professionals, what is one superpower that you use in your work? Empathy is rising to the top there. Listening, yes. Compassion. You know, it's interesting, there's been so much focus on the social emotional skills in this conference. And, you know, those are many of the skills that are our superpowers, right? Yeah. Connection, relationship building. Beautiful. We are going to keep building this as we go, and I have a feeling that this is going to be a beautiful tableau that we can use in lots and lots of ways as we move forward with the center. So I'll just give one more second to keep building, but you can keep putting in your ideas as we keep going, and they will be captured, I promise you. So I'm just going to, whoops, too far. There we go. So I wanted to talk just briefly about where the idea for a career development professional center came from. Big picture, it is the notion that we know that the work that we do is more needed than ever before. That many leaders around the world are clear on that, and increasingly, some governments more quickly than others, but increasingly governments are recognizing that too. We also know that in Canada specifically, access to supports, if you are a career development professional, access to supports is a very uneven horizon. There are some pockets in Canada where there is immense investment in those that are working in the front lines. There is provision of incredible training. There is support to seek certification. There is ongoing professional development opportunities. There are some pockets where that is thriving. But we also know that there are lots of parts of Canada and lots of organizations where that is simply not the case, where it's actually incredibly difficult to access the kinds of supports that we need as professionals, whether it is training, sort of foundational training, whether it is ongoing professional development, whether it is access to each other as professionals and connection to an association and ways to connect to one another, support one another, and learn from one another. There are lots of places in Canada where that's very difficult to do. And so the Future Skills Center had embarked in some pretty deep research around the whole landscape. What's happening in the labor market, what is happening in career and employment services specifically. And one of the themes that emerged over and over and over again was a much greater need for a consistent and inclusive approach to supporting career development professionals across Canada. And so that really was the catalyst for the idea of a career development professional center that would really be striving to do exactly that. And so the first step was to go out to the field, and find out whether in fact this was something that was needed, wanted, and if so, what did it need to look like? And with that, I'm going to pass it to you, Trina.
Okay, thank you.
And I will forward the slide for you.
Thanks. All right, so this is just a little bit of an overview of the journey that we took to be here. And, you know, I think the important thing is you can see all the information here. We took some really conscious and meaningful steps because you are part of this journey, and we wanted to make sure that you were obviously included and in a lot of cases leading that journey. Because this conversation, you know, I think back to a phrase we use where I come from, nothing about us without us. And this Career Development Practitioner Center can't be developed without you. So we made sure to engage and have conversations and really validate and document what it is you said, what it is you said your needs are, the opportunities and the challenges that you're facing. So there was a lot of different avenues that we went through, including live engagement sessions across the country, many conversations, a huge survey that was out, and probably some of you have participated in a lot of those things, and then a number of individual interviews, and of course, our advisory council came together a few times throughout the process to keep checking in and validating what we were hearing and adjusting the path as best we could so that we could gather as much information so that we could make this a meaningful story to tell and to bring that forward to governments and to others who needed to hear this, as Sareena was saying. So that's a little bit about the feasibility study itself and how we came to some of the results. So maybe we'll go to the next slide. All right. So here's a little breakdown, just a very high-level overview of what you said. You know, we broke it down into two categories here today just to share with you, again, some of the things that came out of that study. So under the challenges, of course, we recognize and we understand that, as Sareena was mentioning in her opening remarks, right, the approach is needing some more attention. You know, sometimes there's inadequate metrics. Sometimes and I used to work in employment and training a long time ago, more directly. And, you know, there's always that rush to get the client into the work opportunity without being able to really drill down and support that individual to have a meaningful work placement. Sometimes we're rushed and we end up with that revolving door. And I think some of you may also recognize that that's been part of the cycle for a long time. And together we need to look at that and say, how can we change that cycle? How can we have the door meaningful, open and stay open so that when people do walk through that door into their first, you know, work opportunity or their education opportunity or their next career opportunity, that they're going to stay. So we recognize that that's one of the biggest challenges with the system. And as Sareena was also mentioning, we also understand that across the country there hasn't been consistency in the ability to provide professional development to ourselves, right? It's sometimes we're going to different conferences, and this is one of those greatest examples. I mean, I think I came to my first one was like 1998, 1999 was the first time I came together. And it was the first place that I felt I belonged as an employment coach and things back in the day. And it's a place where we keep coming back to, where we share those best practices. So we need to look at those challenges that we've had of disconnect and that divide and find ways of bringing us back together so that we can have some more consistency, so we can keep sharing those best practices. And, you know, along with that, we understand that there's some feedback we also received around the HR challenges, right? Different organizations have different abilities to support their staff, whether it's through benefits or the different pay scales, and the retention, right? Because we work with people, right? It's not an easy job. We do a lot of the heavy lifting, and we need to be recognized for that. And so employers and agencies are also challenged and looking at how can they support working when sometimes the reality is it's project to project, right? And it's year to year, and that's really hard for retention in this sector. So we documented and collected some of that information, and then you also shared ideas about the opportunities, because I think that's one of the greatest things about the sector and the people that are in this room and that work within this field is, you know, you're not a bunch of Debbie Downers. You're definitely we're the people that say, you know, we have to look at the next sunrise, and that's really what you've done. And through this feasibility study, we were able to help you to share that story and to collect those thoughts. And so, going back to that first point, right? You're very strong and determined as career development practitioners. You stick with it. You know, you see the advantage of coming together, creating those opportunities to collaborate, and in the mentee, you know, those relationships are important. Those relationships that you build within your own team and across organizations, right? They mean something. And through that, you're also, we were also at the same time as a country looking at how can we develop some standards and some common competencies to define what our field looks like. Because in order for others to listen to our story, we need to, you know, tell that story in a good way and kind of put it on the level playing field with other practitioners in other fields and in other sectors. So we created and worked together, and you've all probably participated at some point in that evolution of creating that career development practitioner competency framework, which, you know, is something else that we're looking forward to supporting and providing some training and other things for. You know, the evidence base that we talk about in terms of these opportunities, you do good work. And we need to just, you know, keep telling those stories and keep finding avenues of where we can create those libraries, if you will. I love books and libraries, and, you know, we need to find those places virtually and, you know, and sometimes when we get together at events like this where we can share those best practices and promising practices and document those things so that others can learn, because those of us in the room today, some of us are also thinking about where our next career evolution is going to take us. So we need to think about those next generations ahead, those next evolution of career development practitioners, and what are we leaving behind as our legacy so that they can continue the work. So we need to have that role at the center for a place for them to come and to do that learning and to have those supports and to keep listening as a center to find out how do we keep evolving, how do we keep making sure that the needs are going to be met, what are those future opportunities, and things like that. So those are just some of the challenges and opportunities that we were able to find as we were doing that feasibility study, and I'm sure it's going to keep, you know, evolving and being shared back with you and through the website and other things that we're excited to tell you about. We can keep listening and keep the conversation going, I think is really important. So with that, I'm going to pass it over to my colleague.
Thank you, Trina. I have to say, every single word you just said is giving me goosebumps, and I hope it's generating that resonance with you too. Trina, you talked about the idea of storytelling, and I think often in the classes that I teach, working with fellow career development practitioners, I think often it's a missed opportunity. Somehow, it's one of those things. It's those who teach, right? We're really, really darn good at helping clients tell their story. Let's talk about your strengths. Let's talk about what you're good at. How are you going to contribute to this role, this organization? And then with us, it's like, Oh, yeah, I guess we also have to talk about what we are good at as well. So this next activity is we're hoping to engage you in a little bit of those, let's call it skills and accomplishment statements. If you can forward to the next slide, please. So we're calling this the We Can activity. Strengths-based, so we acknowledge there's challenges, but also opportunities ahead. So thinking of what we can do to capitalize on those opportunities. And I think we've got some time here. So about 7 minutes. Amongst your table, it would be great if you can generate as many as we can statements as possible. So some ideas we have here is we can permeate and cross-pollinate like honeybees, right? Go play in other sandboxes. So Trina, when you were talking about paving the way for next generation, I can't help but to think about the current work that I'm doing with sustainable development goals. The idea of sustainability is paving the way, using the resources that's afforded to us right now, the information that we have right now to generate possibilities for the future. So when we think about the 7th generation principle for the next 7 generation, so we're paving the way without compromising their future. Okay, lots of ideas that's coming up. And one of the things that we would love to invite 3 volunteers to come up to the mic. And speaking of the idea of cross-pollination, we've got prizes. So right in front of me, I have, KPU has a beekeeping program. And so I've got 3 jars of honey that we would love to give away to some brave volunteers who would love to come up and share. So I will buy you some time to come up with that decision, but let's take a look at what's going on the board. So we can make it happen. We can be present. We can be an influence of change. We can be influencers. What are some of the change we want to instigate? So think about the 7 themes that we've been talking about in terms of our advocacy campaign. Gather the networks, bring your people, be part of this conversation. Encourage out-of-the-box thinking. So innovation, ideas, solutions, integrate career thinking into all the school systems. Absolutely. K to 16, beyond, informal learning, lifelong learning. Make Canada better, ensuring every Canadian has opportunity to be in work that allows them to thrive. Consistently in the sessions that I've been a part of, decent work. Not just economic growth, but decent work. So sustainable development goal number 8 there. And sustainable development goal number 4, quality education, change lives. It's what we do day in and day out. Okay. Keep them coming. I'll give everybody about 10 more seconds, and then I don't see people at the mic yet, although that light is a little bit blinding. So 3 awesome volunteers, if you can come up, we'd love to. Yay, Elaine, thank you.
Motivated by honey. I'm really motivated by honey.
Okay, tell us what we can do, Elaine.
Be shamelessly generous with our peers.
Shamelessly generous. Oh, sharing resource, engaging with one another. Funny, we're at a Cannexus conference doing this thing right now. Can we give Elaine a round of applause, please? Come get your honey, honey. Thank you. You're awesome.
Sweet.
You're awesome. Anybody else? They are delicious. They are blueberry honey. Oh, stakes are high. Yay!
Oh, it's going to be a lineup.
It's the whole fear thing, right? Push yourself to be uncomfortable and bring things outside of your scope into your scope so we can meet our participants, our students, our colleagues where they're at.
Awesome. Amazing. Meeting our folks where we're at, and also, again, it's the make everything our business in a way that connects with people. Thank you. Congratulations. Last one.
We like to think of it as planting seeds of hope.
Love it. Love it. Thank you. And as our, wise scholar, Nora Madmanson and Spencer Niles says, hope propels action, and it's a cycle. Thank you. Awesome. And we're excited. You can feel free to keep generate this data, and we will, of course, use it as an artifact for our future discussions and conversations. So thank you for planting these seeds with us.
Great. So we want to dig into what is the Professional Center? What are our initial thoughts as we're launching this? And as you're listening, I know that many of you in this room have been involved already. We had a wild feasibility study that I can't believe. You know, Lynn, when you received your award yesterday, you talked about the sector showing up. And oh my God, did the sector show up for this. I could not believe the 47 live engagement sessions were hosted, not by CCDF or Mixed Mode, by you, by our sector, by us. And so I encourage you, as you're listening to sort of the 6 pillars that are currently underpinning the Career Development Professional Center, I really encourage you to be listening with an ear to, and next what? And, what else? What else? How can we strengthen it? How can we make it better? What ideas are going to push it to be even stronger, even better? We have this extraordinary moment of opportunity in our sector where there is investment in us. This hasn't happened a lot in our sector, and it's incredibly exciting, and we want to capitalize on every second and every penny of it. And so be thinking about how can we make this even better and even stronger. So from the feasibility study, from your ideas, these are the 6 areas that we're focusing on at the outset. The first is, as I hope all of you know, we have a brand new competency framework and code of ethics and an approach to national certification. We are on that road to launching national certification. When I talk with colleagues internationally, they are beyond excited about what we're doing in Canada on that front. It is groundbreaking, it is world-class, it's the only of its kind that meets ISO standards. It really is elevating what we already have been doing all this time and making it visible in a way that really elevates it to those outside of our field. But all of those assets in our field need a home. And so the Career Development Professional Center can serve as that home, as a place where, we know that the competencies that underpin our work, they're not static. They are evolving and changing as our work evolves and changes. And so we need a home for our competency framework and code of ethics to keep them alive and revived and reimagined as our work evolves, and we need a home that can be really supporting the implementation of national certification. We've been working with professional associations across the country for over 10 years now, moving collectively, collaboratively toward this goal, and we're closer than we've ever been before. We have our colleagues sitting right in front of me at the Nova Scotia Career Development Association who have stepped forward, bless your hearts, to take on the role of administering national certification. It is a role that you have already been doing provincially because you have had competency-based certification, and so that is a blessing to our field to have a body ready to step forward to be the administrator. And where we need to move next is to establish a governing body that is pan-Canadian and representative of our field to oversee and to actually grant the national certification. And so the first pillar for the center is to be that home, to really be coordinating and continuing to love and nurture the standards in our field. The second area that we heard in the feasibility study was speaking to that uneven access that I talked about earlier. There really is uneven access to training and professional development in our sector. There are some places where there's strong support, whether somebody comes into the field already with training or not. employers are committed to ensuring that they get training that is specific to career development. And of course, there are other places where that does not happen. And that's not fair to our field, and it's not fair to those that we serve. And so we're trying to ensure that every single career development professional in Canada has free access to solid training that really is focused on the heart and soul of our work. What is career development? What is our scope of practice as career development professionals? Can we rally around a common language and a common embracing of that scope of practice? And importantly, what does all that mean today in this labor market? So, I do find in any of the training that we do, whether it's career development theories, whether it's an ethics course, even within our field, we often struggle to find that common language and that common vocabulary around when we're talking about career development. What do we really mean when we're talking about the delivery of service and that process that underpins it? What does it really look like? And can we rally around common skills to make sure that that process is delivered with competence and excellence? And so the foundational training will be launched in the spring, summer, and it will be delivered in the first phase in a hybrid way. We'll talk a little bit more about that later. But our goal is to ensure that no matter what, this is an initiative that is a funded initiative, and when that funding ends, we cannot have a scenario where these assets end. And so that training will continue to be available free in an online self-guided way. And who knows, we might get creative and lucky, and we can continue to deliver it live as well. And we have been working certainly with partners, particularly ISETs, and I didn't know, Trina, whether you wanted to add anything to that, but really trying to ensure that there are tailored approaches.
Sure. See, this is how Sareena just facilitates so well. Would you like to add anything? Sure, okay. No, but, and this is collaboration. And when I mentioned in my opening remarks, when I first came to, it used to be NatCon back in the day, and I said this was the first group of people where I felt like I belonged. And it was as an employment counselor, as an Indigenous employment counselor, and then I told my friends who told more friends, and now this is the party to be at every year. That's what the goal of this center is for. And so, we've been trying our best as well to promote the message. And I think, as a country, as we come together around truth and reconciliation, and we're building a new path together as a country, it's been an honor to work with the other members around the advisory council and be part of that voice. And so we've been very fortunate to have some great practitioners out there in the Indigenous skills and employment and training agencies who have seen themselves as wanting to become part of this, and who are really taking their leadership role as well in organizing some training that's going to be happening, and really looking at how we can work with the training and also deliver it in a culturally appropriate way for the needs of our communities, which is something I'm very happy about, because that's how real collaboration and real change happens. It's by involving, the people directly. And so we look forward to doing more of that. And then there's already some initiatives. I was just chatting with Deirdre about some things that are happening this spring, so it's kind of got me excited. And so it's going to be great, and again, it is true collaboration and working together and adapting the field and making this house, how we renovate it, together. Everybody has a voice. You all have a voice, and that's what this is all about: is continuing to develop these pillars and adapting them for the needs out there, really. Right? So I'll pass it back over to Sareena to tell you about some more of the pillars.
So the third pillar really is about connecting with one another. We can learn through courses, we can learn through webinars, but so often we miss the opportunities to learn from each other. We certainly felt that during COVID. It is brilliant to be together in a room again. But how do we keep that learning going between conferences? And so we have already launched. If you're there already, fabulous, yay. If you haven't, we're going to be inviting you to join our little social community, our social learning community through the center. We already have some groups forming. There is, just to pique your interest, there is a group, the Cabinet of Career Development Curiosities group that is really all about fostering and fueling our curiosity as a sector, our professional curiosity. So what research are you reading? Are you engaged in research as a career development professional? If so, tell us about it. Share it with your colleagues. Have you read something that just set you on fire that you want to share with colleagues? So go to the Cabinet of Career Development Curiosities and find out about new thinking, new ideas, new research in our field. We need to be fueled as professionals. And so how can we fuel each other through that? There is also a conference conversations group. So my challenge to each and every one of you is, I know that you have had aha moments over the last 3 days. You have had moments of insight, inspiration. We in this room are incredibly privileged to be here. And you have a whole bunch of peers at home who couldn't be here for all kinds of reasons. And so how can we, who had the privilege of being here, share with our peers and our colleagues back home and across the country? And so it's a place where you can share what you're learning at conferences. This one, MBCDA, NSCDA, wherever you're going for conferences, or online webinars, share what you're learning, and we can extend then that learning to others. So those are just two examples, but if we have the image of the home, the social learning community really is kind of our home. It's our
kitchen table.
It's our kitchen table, exactly. And so we'll be sharing a QR code a little bit later in the session where you can hop right into that and join us. We also know the fourth pillar is there is a ton of training and professional development out there. And a fair bit of it is freely accessible, but we have not had a central hub, a place to be able to find it. And so if you have a really strong association, if you're connected well with SAREC, you may be hearing about those opportunities. But lots of folks are looking for one place where they can go to hear about all of the training and professional development that's happening. And so that's something that we will be offering through the center. And then I'll pass it to you for the last two, Candy, if that's okay.
Yeah, sounds great. When I think of evidence-based practice, I think, something that really resonated me throughout this conference is, like Sareena said, we are all doing great work. We need a central space where we put them all together so that, you can get, all of the best information in one single place. But I can't really walk away from evidence-based without thinking, okay, what are we going to do with what we've learned, what we've researched? How can we make it applicable to our context? Whether it's or organizational, the way we're helping clients, or more of a national, institutional context. No matter, what level you're thinking about it from an ecosystem. And my academic father, Dr. Chris Magnuson, always said, evidence, right? He's not here. We can laugh about him. This is recorded, so he might be listening to this. So, the fact that we are often at odds. So, I don't want to say the word opposition, but there are non-career folks that don't understand the work and the value that we bring in our organization. And he often mention, we're fist to fist like this, right? And a more healthy approach is actually the nudging, the day in and day out of demonstrating that, have you seen this research and how it ties to, I think about colleagues in sociology and psychology, arguably much more entrenched or disciplines that have longer history, whereas we are very interdisciplinary and sometimes transdisciplinary. So a more appropriate approach would be nudging, where they come in like this and then you nudge. So eventually they move up or move them in the direction that you want them to go. And I think of building that evidence base on a regular, consistent basis and engaging in that knowledge exchanges with one another as integral. So again, the honeybee metaphor, analogy of cross-pollination. And then ultimately, what all this leads to is having a unified voice, common language, being able to advocate strongly and passionately for our sector, and talking about, return on investment. Why is it important to invest in career guidance, intervention, and support? Because, hey, these numbers are coming back. It's generating socioeconomic benefits. It's generating environmental benefits, all the good things. And again, it's that skills and accomplishment statements, right? We know what we do is awesome. We need to be able to better communicate by focusing on the results and the impact. So this is what the Career Development Professional Center is striving for. Definitely one of our big pillars.
Great. So where are we now and where are we headed? The feasibility study led into us writing a proposal to launch a Career Development Professional Center. That was approved in September. So we're 4 months in, and we are working our bunnies off to move things forward. So we have the social learning community is up and running and ready to welcome you. The Career Development Professional Center website is live, and we'll be giving, again, we'll provide a link and QR code in just a moment for both of those. We are madly developing the training, and come spring, summer, we will be launching. And as I said, it will be a hybrid approach in this first phase. So a mix of a little bit of live facilitated online learning, some self-paced learning, but also some live face-to-face sessions. I think we've got at this stage something like 40 sessions booked across the country from coast to coast to coast. We will be ultimately making sure that training is accessible for free in a fully self-paced mode. So that's where we are and where we're going. And I'd like to close by talking a little bit about the why. We've talked about what the center is. We've talked about where we are and where we're going next. But I would like to close on the why. And I believe that we are in the business of safeguarding, nurturing, and amplifying human potential. That's our business. And I don't know if you've noticed that there's more and more use lately of the term moonshot. Has anybody been hearing that term? A few of you? It used to be synonymous with a long shot. The idea of a moonshot was something that was highly unlikely that you were going to be able to do it. It was a long shot. So, my dream of being a backup dancer for Bruno Mars is a moonshot. I'm coming to terms with that. Increasingly, though, moonshot, the word is being used in a much different and more optimistic way. It's being used to rally people, resources, time and money around a goal that if we could achieve it, it could change everything. And so we've got the White House not too long ago announced their cancer moonshot, investing billions of dollars in a concerted, intense effort to cure cancer. We have the Earthshot Prize that is about bringing together, again, intensively, the very best of our thinking and our resources to address climate change and ensuring that our planet survives. And obviously, curing cancer and saving the planet certainly fit the bill as being worthy causes for investment. But I would argue that unless we attend to our human beings, unless we address the growing socioeconomic divide in our world, unless we address the despair of equity-deserving groups who continue to be blocked from opportunity, unless we address the issue of sustainable livelihoods for all, for everybody, unless we help people to feed their families and feed their souls, I think our world will be uninhabitable, ultimately. And so, yes, we need to keep working on abolishing diseases and we need to reverse global warming, but we also, I think, need to be working on a human shot. A shot that is all about nurturing, protecting, amplifying human potential. And I would argue that our sector is at the heart of that. I don't think that there is any sector that is better equipped to be rolling up our sleeves and working together toward achieving a human shot. People power this world, and we saw that for sure during the pandemic, where literally our survival depended on those workers that showed up every day. And so I would say perhaps we need more than anything else right now a human shot, and we know that good work, decent work, and good career development, it lifts people out of poverty in sustainable ways. It provides health, happiness, prosperity, sustainable livelihoods, all of the things that make for solid families, solid communities, and solid countries. And so we have a big job in front of us, and so the why of the center is really wanting to be sure that we are as supported and nurtured and amplified as we can be as a sector as we do this really important work moving forward. So. So I encourage you to jump in and join us. The center is ours, and it is ours to benefit from, but it's also ours to contribute to and to nurture and to grow. And so the only way that this will be really meaningful is if it truly is owned by us and shaped by us on an ongoing basis. And so that is the link to the center website. The QR code will help you to get into the learning community and get into the cabinet of career development curiosities and the conference conversations. You might want to share on the conference conversations of everything that you've heard and talked about at Cannexus, what leaves you feeling most excited. So I would love to see your comments in there. And so with that, we are just about at time. I'm going to leave that up, but as you're getting connected, I really do want to say an enormous thank you to each and every one of you who has gotten us to this stage with the center. I am looking around the room and see so many people who we would not be able to be sitting here talking about launching the Career Development Professional Center had you not been so involved at every step of the way so far, and I can't wait to work with you at every step of the way going forward. So I know that we have a brief break from now until 20 after 10, at which point the phenomenal keynote will be joining us. It's one that I think we're all really looking forward to, so I encourage you to get hydrated, have a break, and come on back here at 10:20. And so with that, I say an enormous thank you very, very much.